Hey guys, Philosopher here. And today we're talking about whether or not, first of all, I'm going to talk about whether the web warriors are good outside of raids. And then we're going to talk about whether you should care. In other words, do we even care about building characters for anything other than raids anymore? All right, that is a growing trend that I keep seeing. I get a lot of players who say to me, Philosopher, why should I even bother building any teams for war? Why should I bother building teams for anything unless absolutely necessary to do so other than my raid characters? And I think it's a good question. So we're going to talk about that today. Let me just start by talking about the Web Warrior team. I think there was, I had some videos when these characters first came out, when I first tested them on the test server. And then again, when I was first testing them, I think I gave you guys a sort of a mixed message on this team. I would say mixed bag. I viewed them as a mixed bag. They're very good at raids. They're better than the symbiotes at raids. They're not like an OP I win button like New Warriors. They're not like some team where you just press a button and they just delete everybody the way that the Cloak Dagger, Deathpool, those characters do. But they're very good in raids. But I made a big deal about the fact that I didn't think they were going to be that great elsewhere. And I know a lot of people, I got a lot of commentary on that, and a lot of people mistook that to mean that I said that this team's bad. I didn't say it was bad. I just said it's very limited. It's very good in one game mode. So first of all, let's talk about, is that true? And I will tell you, I've been using this team a lot. In all sorts of different game modes. I'm pretty convinced, for my new player video starting now, I did not recommend to new players that they use this as sort of their one team that they use everywhere. Remember, new players are going to be in like Ultimus 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7. They don't need all these different raid teams. It doesn't matter to them that this is the best bio raid team. I don't think this team would do as well in Arena. And I stand by that. I don't think this team does all that well. I'm sure if any of you have ever tried to use this team in RTA, seen them get rolled, you know what that's like. But in War, I will say this team has performed a little bit better than I expected. Not a lot, but a little bit better. On defense, I know you guys saw my initial videos that I was beating the team with some older characters like old teams like Supernatural. The reason I was doing that is because this team doesn't have any cleanse. It has no way to get rid of debuffs. That does work in practice mode, and it does work for like smaller teams. But once you get your teams to this size, I found that in actual war with war buffs, where you're getting the cargo bay and hangar and all, or you have cargo bay and the other side, cargo bay, med bay, barracks, etc., is not 100% reliable to try to use Supernatural, Hollow Natural. My alliance was failing against teams of roughly this size. So we ended up switching to Axemen. Now, Axemen, I will say, 1-year-old team. So if a 1-year-old team can beat this team on defense, then it's not that great of a team. But I will say when we were facing Legion and we were facing Gear Tier 16 Web Warriors, which are much bigger than these, all with 7 yellow stars, that big, Axemen didn't always work, and we sometimes had to use X Factor. Now, these aren't. So what does this mean about this team? Well, it's not. They're more of a mid-range team and more. They're not completely awful, but you obviously have to get them very big. And the reason why being very big matters is it allows them to kind of let the debuffs. It gives them time for the debuffs to fall off of them. And essentially, their only way of dealing with debuffs is to dodge them. If they're small enough, the debuffs can just sort of overwhelm them and you could get them down. If they're very, very, very large, if they're built up super high, they may be able to withstand that. They're still not the best team. I mean, X Factor is kind of at this point, not one of the very best war offense teams anymore, right? They've been kind of power crept by things like Affinity Watch and Eternals and everything else. But they're still, they're obviously not as good as Shadowland, but they're very good. They're still very good. So this is a reasonable defense. On offense, they're decent-ish. If you need to take off one of these characters and add, like you can't, like you leave off Spider-Punk and you put in a different 5th, and then they're okay-ish, beating kind of mid-range team. That's not how they do on offense. So they still, it's not that far off from what I said. I think they're basically, what I would say is, unlike a team like the New Warriors or Secret Adventures, they're okay. Also, they're just okay elsewhere. Nothing great. So what does that mean? Do we even care? I've got a lot of players telling me, philosopher, you don't understand. I don't care about anything other than raids. I don't, these characters are cheap for Dark Dimension. They're good for raids. That's all I care about. Here's what I would say to you. I think that's a pretty rational way of looking at this game for many players right now. And what I mean by that is raids give so many rewards right now, right? That I can understand why players are like, okay, when you look at these rewards, they're just so, here, let's look here. When you look at these rewards, they're so significant compared to a war where you get basically the same rewards for winning and losing. Why do I, of course this is going to be my focus. And let's face it, Arena is just a crapshoot, depending on if you're the person who hits right at the timeout or, right when the payout is done. And, it's, that's something where, you have one team there and those, you can just invest in characters that work in raid and arena. So I could see why players are doing that. Let me just say, what are the exceptions to this rule? How is this going to change? I don't think this is an unreasonable thing to do for many players. One thing I will say is there will get a point in everyone's account eventually. It may take years if you're free to play. It may take many, many years. But there will come a point where you will get ahead of the curve enough. Like I said, it may take years. I mean, if you're starting today and you're free to play, maybe you'll stop playing the game before it ever happens. But for most players, this will eventually get to a point where if you just focus entirely on raids, your war teams will hold you back from getting into a good alliance. A lot of alliances do care about war because war is fun to many players, even if it isn't the most rewarding part of the game. It is still a lot of fun. And for me, I will tell you, when I started hitting, I think it was maybe 8, 9, 10 million TCP, I was looking to join a better alliance. At the time, it was trying to get into Platinum 1, and I joined an alliance called Agents of Chaos, and they're like, okay, well, you need to build your X-Force to this. You need to build, all these teams that I hadn't built before, I suddenly had to build because that was part of being in the alliance. And so I think a lot of folks get into that barrier. But I think the game is now evolving in a way to make that more of a to end this raid only mindset and force you. Scopely is trying to force you into this direction. So I just would say this to those of you who are focused on raids. The game is starting to change and work against you if that is your mindset, because we've already seen now with Pocket Dimension, right? Lots of mid-game players. My last video, which is very popular, is helping my cousin, a mid-game free-to-play player, with his Pocket Dimension run. Well, there's a lot of players that I've been, talking to this week on Discord, helping them try to get through this without Omega Red. And so what they're doing is upgrading characters like Multiple Man. There's some people have sworn that Yondu's been clutch for them, but they're upgrading their Yondu. There's been people upgrading their Magic and Storm. These are not characters that help them in raids. They're not being upgraded for raid purposes. They're being upgraded to get massive rewards out of Pocket Dimension. That's exactly what Scopely's trying to do. It's literally a bribe to get mid-game players to upgrade non-raid characters. Avengers Tower is the same thing, right? Avengers Tower was a game mode that rewarded you having all these teams built, right? I had, when you guys saw my run there, that was the focus. And in just a few months, we're going to have something called Grand Tournament. And I will tell you, as somebody who's played a lot of Grand Arena and another game, Galaxy of Heroes, that is a game mode that also rewards. It's basically a single-player alliance war. It's going to reward you having a bunch of different teams. We don't know what the rewards are going to be. I will say that in Galaxy of Heroes, they literally took their equivalent of power cores out of Arena and they put them into Grand with their equivalent of Grand Tournament. So I do think it's very possible Scopely could move some rewards or put some rewards in Grand Tournament, which will then make it where you're going to have a lot more characters to build. Similarly, I also will just say that I think, over time, Scopely may rework the rewards for Alliance War just as Galaxy Heroes did and added some really important rewards to their version of Alliance War. I guess what I'm saying is this. It is totally correct for you to focus on the game modes that give you the most rewards as long as you're having fun with those game modes. I mean, I don't think you should ignore war if that's what you enjoy the most about the game. However, don't do things that will leave you with no option to pivot later. Here's what I mean. It's fine if you just want to use your resources to upgrade, let's say, your raid teams, like the Web Warriors. But don't put yourself in a spot where you don't get the shards for other teams. Don't put yourself in a spot where you blow all your resources entirely on raid teams and you don't have a stockpile if you need to pivot. Because Pocket Dimension is showing us that there are going to be times where for many players they're going to need to build outward. You better believe that the next Pocket Dimension is going to have a whole new set of characters, right? A wacky list of characters for you to upgrade. And similarly, these new game modes, as other ones come out, just like Pocket Dimension, I suspect that they're going to have other game modes as well that are going to have an incentive for you to invest in different characters. So my advice to all of you is, if you're focused on raids, that's totally legitimate, makes a lot of sense. Just make sure you keep your options open for the future because Scopely knows what you're up to, and they're working against you because you are figuring out a way to be hyper efficient to just get the rewards you want out of the game. And as you know, that's not Scopely's interest. Scopely wants you to blow resources so that you feel, you feel pressured to purchase their offers and put money in their pocket. All right, guys, if you like this video, smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. If you have comments or questions, you have your own view, put it below or go to my Discord. Lots of great conversations there. You can also go to my Twitch stream, which is linked below. And if you want to support this channel, click the link below to buy Amazon coins. That's a great way of supporting the work we do.